Hello guys, and this video could have been sarcastic, because how else do you speak about Russia bombing Russia? But I do want to keep it serious, because behind this obvious fact there is some hidden truth that is so important to understand. How negligent and unprofessional Russian army is. And the fact that they run out of weapons, use old Soviet crap, reconstructed in a wrong way, and keep destroying their own lands. It's obvious. In Kursk regions, Russians use scorched earth policy because they cannot get the territories back, and the only way they know how to fight the war is scorched earth policy. But what about Belgorod? According to ASTRA, which is an independent media in Russia operating on the grounds, Russians dropped hundreds of bombs on this poor region, causing destruction and troubles to the local population. So let's have a look what is happening in Belgorod and why these bombs keep falling accidentally on the Russian houses from the Russian bombers. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see Russia defeated and Putin imprisoned, subscribe. We will discuss that on the channel sometime soon. And why am I so confident? Well, there is proof. And proof number one, Russian army is super negligent. Because if in any other healthy society, at least one bomb would be accidentally dropped on their own village, a serious investigation would take place. People would try to understand what's the reason for this accidental bombs being dropped, and until they find the reason, perhaps they would not use the bombs. But in Russia, they keep dropping them both on Ukraine and on Belgorod. According once again to this ASTRA media, since March 2024 to October 2024, which is like half a year, Russian bombers dropped 131 bombs on Belgorod region, just one Russian region, 131. The majority of these bombs are FAB-300, FAB-500, but once they even dropped a very rare, very heavy, and very dangerous FAB-300. No, 3000, all those English numerals, I'm sorry. And what inspired my video today? The recent news that during the last week, Russian bombers dropped 2 FABs and 1 winged missile on their own Belgorod region. Once again, it is not Kursk that is occupied by the Ukrainian troops. It's Belgorod, where they only have villages and people. And the city of Belgorod itself was bombed not once, with serious destructions to some infrastructure and houses. And they have 400,000 people living in Belgorod. That's insane. You will not find reports or analysis on the problem, but you can find Russian FABs in the forests, in the fields, especially if they haven't exploded and just wait for the right moment. Russian farmers, alcoholics walking in Belgorod forests often report finding of such bombs, and nothing happens. This is actually insane, because not only they keep dropping these bombs, like in dozens, in hundreds already, but they do not inform people about that, and they do nothing to prevent the potential consequences. Why? Because that is what Russia is. Subscribe to be better protected against Russian propaganda, to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine, and to see Putin in prison. So, we were trying to understand in Ukrainian media, analyzing ASTRA's work, what is wrong with these FABs? Why do they keep falling? And there seems to be a reason. Most of these bombs were constructed decades ago in times of the Cold War, maybe in the 60s, maybe even before you were born. Definitely the majority of them before I was born. But anyway, they need to modify them. And because they were known as, I don't know if it's the correct term in Ukrainian, it's like stupid bombs. They cannot be targeted, they cannot be guided, they can only be dropped. So they try to reconstruct them, adding some systems that can actually guide these bombs, because Russians are afraid to come close to the front lines, and they typically drop them from the Russian side. And our allies somehow protect Russian bombers, not letting Ukraine strike back, which is insane, and I will never understand the logics. But they modify these bombs to be able to drop them from the Russian side, and these systems that they add to FABs seem not to work right. And that's why they keep bombing themselves. Just as in the Orwell book 1984, Russia resembles me, that anti-utopia, perfectly. Just as in that book, they have developed their own language, and whenever they need to speak about this Russia bombing Russia, they describe it as an accidental descent of an explosive. Nothing happened. Just a couple of houses destroyed. And lots of people evacuated. Quite often after this bomb is dropped, they need to evacuate the whole village or a number of villages to be able to take it away. Can you imagine how many Russian resources are spent in a similar way? They had this old Soviet crap. They reconstructed with some bad systems. Then they drop them on their own territory. Then they have to clean them from their own territory. They have to evacuate people. They have to collect the debris. That's the way Russia fights the war. And I do not understand those global leaders who are still afraid of the Kremlin or who still believe in its strengths. And I was so offended by the visit of the UN Secretary General Guterres to Russia. After all of these war crimes, after all of his concerns expressed on the ruins of the Ukrainian hospitals and schools, I am sorry, but this man is persona non grata for my personal mind. And let me know, what do you think about this visit of his to Russia? Is there any explanation? But I cannot find one. What I think about is the League of Nations, if I'm not mistaken, which operated after the First World War, did not manage to prevent the Second World War, and was lost its importance after the start of the Second World War. I think something similar awaits the United Nations, because they don't seem to be working, they don't seem to be protecting human rights, they don't seem to be real organization. And those people who care about money, those people who care about taxes, just think about how much money we spend on UN to let Guterres travel and hug with Putin. Insane. And Russia keeps bombing itself. When Ukraine is not allowed to bomb Russia, luckily Russia is allowed to bomb Russia. Anyway, this is another proof of how easily they can be defeated. We just have to be motivated. Ukrainians are. We have to remain united, and we can defeat this evil. And just imagine how much stronger and how much happier we will be after the collapse of this evil Kremlin. Join me on Instagram. I share more of everyday life and NAFO updates there. Also, I'm on X and Threads, and we have a beautiful Discord community. All the links that you need are in the description of this video. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel, and helping me film and write more. By the way, as I record this, I have a notice that an air raid alert is for my region, which is another message from Russia to Ukraine. But we have our messages, and they are definitely stronger and better. Like, Ukrainian drones that demilitarize Russia and thus prevent similar air raid alerts. Check our merch shop for lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. And most importantly, we have to stay united and we have to understand it is not about territories, it's about values and human lives. Slava Ukraini!